All of this started over an article in The Athletic by Max Olson that a lot of people responded to, but very few of the people who responded actually read. Now, I try to be open-minded, fair, and find nuance when it comes to Deion Sanders because I do realize that there are a lot of bad actors in the conversation. And one, he was one of my all-time favorite athletes, and I want him to succeed at Colorado. But today, he's out of line and out here acting like Donald Trump, and he has to be called out because you got to call a spade even if you want somebody to succeed. But what do I mean by acting like Donald Trump? And I'm not talking about the politics here. I'm talking about a man's personal philosophy that you always got to fire back, especially when you are in a position of authority and power, because Deion Sanders spent the last couple of days on social media firing back at random dudes and kids on other teams and his former player Cormani McClain while signal boosting Shedeur Sanders' beef with a former Colorado player. But how did we get here? I'm going to take you back to the beginning, because when Deion first went to Colorado, he told the previous regime's players that he was going to clear them out. This is where the bad actors are like, look at what Deion's doing. Listen, every new coach pushes players out of the program. You might not like it, but it is absolutely allowed. What made Deion Sanders' case unique is that he openly promoted that he was there to clear out and rebuild the program. And when he was done, an unprecedented record 53 players transferred out and 87 new players were brought in. That was the new Louis Luggage, apparently, even though a lot of them are back in the portal. And that brings us to the 1-year anniversary of the last batch of Colorado's 2022 squad getting pushed out of the program. Because when the Athletic's Max Olson dropped that piece chronicling the journey of those players that left Colorado, there was some pushback that the Athletic didn't need to drop this article and that it was an attack on Colorado's program and by extension, an attack on Deion Sanders himself. But here's the reality. Deion Sanders put all of this stuff on social media, put that team meeting on social media. So, of course, people are going to want to have an appetite to know what happened with those players. Look at when you watch Last Chance U or you watch any documentary, positive, negative. What do? Hop on Google and figure out where those players are at. But the truth about the article is, it was actually fairly straightforward and quite tame if we're being really honest. It was the Athletic's promotion of the article with Xavier Smith's quote front and center that seemed to have tipped off the college football civil war, which makes this whole situation even dumber because people are fighting over an article they didn't even read. They're just emotional over the headline. So in this article, several of those 50 some odd players described their decision to stay and fight for a roster spot in spring football after Deion got there. And they all say that Deion was straightforward with them, no lies there, and that the competition turned into an us versus them between the old players and the new players. The article does describe an environment where the players that got cut wish that Deion Sanders had been more interested in them as football players and as people, but they get that this is how football works. Where's the problem there? They can have their perspective about it, even if you disagree. Now, some of the players that Deion Sanders cut off of Colorado's roster, they got caught up in the NCAA's nonsensical double transfer rule that should have never been applied to players that get pushed out of programs. Now, that's no longer a thing. Gotta point out, this is why changes have happened. And people are like, kids need to be prevented from transferring. Not when so many of them get pushed out of programs. Now, some of the players found success outside of Colorado, including Xavier Smith, who went on to Austin Peay, balled out in the defensive backfield, and earned national accolades for his play as a redshirt freshman. But Xavier Smith is the one that The Athletic decided to feature in their promotion of the article because he gave the sexiest quote. And here is what he said, word for word. Quote, "We sat on the sofa and he's talking to us, as in Deion Sanders, but he's not even looking at us. And I'm looking at defensive coordinator Charles Kelly dead in his eyes. And Sanders said he felt like he should hit the portal. He didn't want me to waste a year thinking I could earn a spot. And I was actually getting mad, like tears coming to my eyes, because bro, you never even tried to get to know me. Nobody likes getting cut though. Michael Jordan becoming an all-time psychopath over getting sent down to JV as a 10th grader is the most legendary story in all of sports. And Xavier Smith went on to say, quote, he was destroying guys' confidence and belief in themselves. The way he did it, it could have been done with a little more compassion. That's their perspective. Of course, Deion and other coaches are going to have a different perspective. And players who are cast off are usually have a negative perception of what happened. So where's the problem there? Because people didn't read it. They just looked at the headline, oh, he's bashing Deion. And that's the quote that pissed off Shedeur Sanders, the high-profile QB son of Deion Sanders. What's crazy about him being mad is that The Athletic never specifies whether the quote is about Deion Sanders at all. In fact, it actually reads like it's about Charles Kelly. Nevertheless, though, Shedeur went in on Xavier Smith, quote tweeting the article and saying he doesn't even remember Smith and he was mid at best. You're like, what? The starting quarterback said that? You didn't even try to get to know the dude? Another Colorado player, Kaleb Mathis, jumped in to post a video of Xavier Smith getting beat on a route to try to, you sorry anyway. A normal thing that you would see after something like this is the head coach of a program telling their players to tune out the noise and focus on themselves. And while Kaleb Mathis did have the wherewithal to delete the video, Deion reacted to the backlash of Shedeur putting a former teammate on blast with a tweet that was clearly meant to bait the haters. How do I know this? Because the tweet about Shedeur, directed to Shedeur, could have easily been a text message, and it read, "Folks don't hate you because they really don't know you. They admire you in a negative way. They realize that they can't be you, think like you, talk like you, or walk in your shoes. And that bothers them. Always smile when you see them because that makes them admire you so much more in that negative way." As soon as Deion got a reply that he could capitalize on, he went to work. He told a random troll that Shedeur was going to be a top 5 NFL draft pick next year and asked the account what their son had going on. Then he quote tweeted a Colorado fan who was making fun of one of Xavier Smith's teammate stats. That teammate, Jaheim Ward, had come to Smith's defense saying that Kaleb Mathis shouldn't be tweeting out videos tearing down a kid when he only had 38 receiving yards in 2023. This is middle school shit. If my son was engaged in this type of calling out other middle school football players, I'd get called into the office. But Coach Prime isn't a middle schooler. He has 1.8 million followers on Twitter/X, and there's a pretty massive power imbalance there. It's one thing for Kaleb Mathis to go back and forth with another football player his own age. It's another thing for Deion to pile on to the kid for defending his teammate over a video that Kaleb Mathis must have known was stupid to post because he deleted it. And when Deion piled on Jaheim Ward, Kaleb Mathis was giggling in the replies like a child because that's the tone that Deion has set in this conversation. And the crazy part about Kaleb Mathis out here being the instigator for Colorado is that not only is he a non-contributor, he's a 5'9", 160-pound player who only has a spot on the team because Deion played with his father on the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Kaleb Mathis is the exact type of player Deion Sanders would be looking to chase out of the program if he had gotten there under his own merits of Carl Durrell. Now, while Xavier Smith, a track star from Atlanta who played multiple positions and helped take his high school team to a 6A title game and overcame not one, but 2 broken legs to be a star in Austin Peay's defensive backfield after being cut, is the exact type of athlete you would expect Deion Sanders to be out here praising. And this whole situation shows a lack of maturity that's hard for anybody outside of Colorado fans to make an excuse for. And now you have Deion Sanders Jr. calling longtime recruiting reporter Mike Farrell a bitch while his dad tweets about Jesus. What good is going to come from any of this? Because this isn't going to be the last hit piece drop against Colorado. In fact, the next hit piece might actually be a hit piece because that wasn't. This was just a reporter printing a quote from a kid who deserves just as much as anybody to have a voice to speak their truth. Now, is the Sanders family gonna lash out on everybody that brings up their name? Because that's the type of thing that got the Trump family in office. But a lot of people will tell you that it also cost them the office. Now, it doesn't cost anybody anything to start a beef with the Sanders clan, but responding could cost them everything, and in turn could cost Colorado's players and their fans. As a head coach, you have to be above the fray. You have to teach your players not to get baited. And if they do get baited, you need to make sure that they're wise enough to take the bait without getting the hook. Just like somebody pushing them in a game and then them responding and getting a 15-yard penalty, a lot of what Colorado did last year. But if you're the coach and can't do it yourself, how do you expect your players to do it? Maybe this is five-dimensional chess. Maybe it's galvanized Colorado's players and brings them closer together, giving them the edge that they need to compete in the Big 12. But right now, it feels like Deion Sanders is doing a better job motivating haters to be more vocal and more outrageous because they know that they'll get a response. The only way out of this for Deion is to set the tone for Kaleb Mathis, Shedeur Sanders, and the rest of Colorado's team by turning the other cheek. Wonder if he read that somewhere. He has to be the adult, and he has to show that he can take an arrow while letting the results be his response. But this much noise coming off a 1-8 conference run last year, where the one conference win went into overtime, comes off more as insecure than confident. And insecurities about yourself become truths on the football field. Let that sink in.